Hey y'all, and welcome back to my channel. In this tutorial we are going to make this wooden patina resin tray. Now the other day I ran into Target for one thing, and we all know that that does not happen. I came across this board right here in their dollar section. This one was $5 and it's pretty good quality, especially for the price. Really easy to make some good ready to ship items for your store, especially for the holidays coming up. We're going to do lots of smaller items or quick things that you can get together. They're good quality to have in your store ready to ship for the holidays. I know how chaotic it is to do custom orders. I used to do them myself. And believe me, having these ready to ship things in your store will be such a time saver and satisfy your customers while getting a beautiful custom gift. Now you could feel just a bit of the oily residue on this board. I just took a microfiber cloth and a little bit of alcohol and wiped this down just to get it off of the surface. And then I went over with the COLORFLEX black paint just on the bottom. The main reason for this is not necessarily that we are going to be putting a design on top of this. I'm going to be using clear glass firestones, and although we are putting them on top of our epoxy with micas in there, if by chance that epoxy seeps out from under the stones, it's going to show the color reflected underneath, and I have found that just seeing the wood grain through it isn't as appealing, or it doesn't look as good as seeing a nice solid color through the bottom of them. Also, the COLORFLEX paints from COLORFLEX is a 3-in-1, so it's a paint, primer, and an adhesive. So the primer is what really comes in handy in this case, since we did have some oils on the bottom of this board. It really seals that in and avoids any issues with our epoxy. We are going to be using a fast set epoxy for this board, and since our epoxy is going to have a smaller window or time frame for us to get it on the board and spread out to the way that we like, I'm going to go ahead and get all of my micas out. All of the micas are from PDB Creative Studio. We are using Wintergreen, Snuggle, Harvest, Snow, and Black Pearl. Now I do mix Snow up, but we actually end up not adding in the white, so we can just ignore that one. And I do end up adding a little bit more mica on top of my epoxy once I add that into these cups, but I did go ahead and put my micas on the bottom of the cup, so when I mix quickly, I'm not going to have mica dust floating through the air. I have 120 milliliters of ARTISTRY's 1:1 ratio fast set. Since I am working with so much epoxy and this is a fast set, I did not want it to flash cure or cure really fast on me, so I did not heat my part A as I typically do. So you will see that it is a little foggy from the micro bubbles. However, we are going to be applying a lot of heat once we apply these micas in the epoxy to the board, so it will eliminate every last bit of those. I put roughly 20 milliliters of epoxy in each of my little cups with my micas, stirred them up really quickly, making sure that all of that mica powder is mixed in properly. Now I do have some epoxy left over in my large cup. We are going to use that to cover up our stones. So of course, eliminating the white, we would have had a little bit more left over. Just if you do have an excessive amount, make sure that you do split it up into smaller amounts so your epoxy will cure a little bit slower. The more epoxy that you have in a cup, especially when working with a fast set, the quicker it's going to set up on you. So if you are going to set the extra epoxy to the side, I would make sure that you do divide it up into at least about 20 milliliters, 20 to 30 milliliters if you have more than that just sitting waiting on you to use on top of your stones. Once all of the micas are mixed up, I'm just going to apply them to my board, not in any certain pattern or fashion. I just want them all on here, and then we are going to go in with our heat gun and heat these up so that we can get them to mix together and just flow really nicely all around the board. I did slow this clip right here down for you just so you can see how quickly I was actually working in real time applying these to the board. Again, we're working with a fast set here. If you are not comfortable working with a fast set for a large project like this, by all means use a regular epoxy. I just wanted to put this to the test and see how big of a project I could actually use this fast set on. Now we are sped back up double time and getting all of these micas onto the board really quickly. I am just spreading them all over the board. I'm trying not to overlap them too much in areas. I don't want to muddle them all together prior to adding my heat. I want the heat to really help them do the work rather than just pour them on top of each other. After I have all of my micas and epoxy on the board, I'm going to take my heat gun. It is on high. However, the high setting on this heat gun is not very hot. It just blows out air a lot faster. Really, you need the pressure more than you need the heat in this case. So if you have a heat gun that gets really hot, I would put that on a low setting and just work with these micas a little bit slower, heating them up and then tilting the board back and forth to help mix them together. All of the work that I did with the heat gun was slowed down, so you can actually see how much time I spent on applying heat to this before we went in with our alcohol ink. This is Religion, also from PDB Creative Studio. I just went through adding in a few dots. A little bit is going to go a very long way. I don't want to take away from those beautiful colors that are already on our board. I just want to add a little bit of dimension to this. So once you add on those alcohol inks, you can start by holding your heat directly in the center and then blowing them out to the side. Once I had the alcohol ink spread out exactly how I wanted, then we can go in with our glass firestones. I got these from Amazon and I will have them linked down below for you. I'm not placing them in any sort of strategic way. I'm just going through and adding them to the corner of my board. I want this to be a functional catch-all tray, decorative piece, whatever the customer that purchases may want to use it for. So I don't want these stones to be in the way of making this a functional piece of art. Once I have all of my glass stones in place and make sure that they are sitting flush with the board and I don't have any pieces that are just sticking out too far over the edge, I'm going to take that clear epoxy we had set to the side and just drizzle it over the top of these stones. This is going to help further secure them and give them a beautiful glossy finish. And I'm sorry I'm all up in the way of the camera. Normally I do pay attention to placement and making sure I'm not blocking what I'm showing you. I was just really tuned in and focused on getting this finished and challenging myself with making this project with the facet epoxy. After I drizzled that epoxy over top of our glass stones, I went back in with my heat gun, ran it over those stones to spread that epoxy out so it wouldn't be so streaky over top of them. Allowed it to flow down into the micas that we have originally put on, and then worked with my heat gun just a little bit further to spread out that alcohol ink just a bit more. Now from start to finish, I would say this took me a total of about 15 to 20 minutes, with 5 minutes of that just being mixing my epoxy and getting those micas mixed in, and about 10 to 15 minutes of work time on this board. After I allowed it to sit for 30 minutes and cure up just a bit, I can add on my final coat. For our final coat, we are also using the ARTISTRY 1:1 ratio facet epoxy. I am using roughly 60 milliliters and spreading that all around the board, and just going to go in with my heat gun and torch, heat this up, spread it around the board, and then run over with my torch to pop any micro bubbles in this final coat. Now, I posted a little bit of a teaser in our Brittany Barnes Boutique Facebook group that this took under 2 hours. It did take under 2 hours, however, it actually took under an hour to complete, not including the final dry time, because we took about 20 minutes to create this board, 30 minutes in between adding on our original epoxies and our final coat. The only reason that we were able to get the facet epoxy to work on such a large project is because we did a very, very thin layer. The layer of epoxy is probably between 1/8 and 1/4 of an inch, so please do not misunderstand and think that you can use this on molds or depours. You absolutely cannot. You must do thin coats or thin layers of the facet epoxy. I feel like I need to make another trip to Target to grab some more of these boards. It turned out absolutely gorgeous, and I cannot wait to show you more designs on these. All the materials used will be listed down in the description below for y'all, as well as some coupon codes. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. Hit the bell in the corner to be notified anytime a new tutorial drops. That is all for today. Thank you all so much, and we'll see you next time.